Yes.
Okay, this is your timer. This indicates what patterns you're going to spray on the road. You have outputs of 4 guns. You can either choose to put it on a solid, a skip, or not use that gun at all by putting it in the middle. In a solid, it's just basically just an on-off thing. In skip, it actually uses the computer inside the core skipper to designate the pattern to go on the road. You have a main switch here. Hold is off. Run means it'll start spraying whatever you have out. In mark, if you're off a little bit, you can hold her down, and when you release it, it starts the pattern all over again. This is your carriage up and down button. Just raises and lowers the gun carriage. Index button, you can choose whether to start with the painted line or with the space. Right here we have a stripe and a cycle. The stripe, they have it 0.1 inches, feet I mean, and the cycle is 45 feet. The cycle is the space and the stripe combined. So that's going to be a 44.9 inch space with a 0.1 inch stripe. You can either choose to start with the space or the stripe. Advance and retard. If you have a cycle in and you're just a little bit off on the cycle, you can advance and retard that cycle so you put your spacing right on the already marked road. You also have 3 preset patterns. That's a 10, 30. They have a 0.1 and 5, and they have a 2-foot, 10-foot pattern plugged in there right now. On here, it's your beads on, off, or test. In the test mode, you put down here, you put this gun in stripe. When you hit this, you can fire the bead gun by itself without paint, just to test and see if it's working. Up here, you have your reset clear. These are for your counters. You can either reset one parameter, or you can clear the whole timer. We'll get to that a little bit later when we go through the memory of the thing. This is your stripe and your cycle. When you're in this pattern, you can choose to increase or decrease that to whatever you want it to be. And if you do it, say we increase this one to 4, we change that, we come back, it's going to stay at 4. So this is how you increase your stripe and your cycle that you're putting on the road. Beads, you can choose to have your bead guns come on a little early by pushing this up. The beads will come on a little bit early, and just because of the simple matter that when the paint comes out at 2,000 psi, it's on the ground right away, and beads are just kind of falling out of the gun. It takes them like 32 milliseconds to hit the ground, so you actually want your bead gun to come on first, so the paint and the beads hit the ground about the same place. And because you never get it right on, you could always choose to extend it a little bit to make the beads gun stand a little longer than the paint guns to ensure you have beads on the entire line. Here you have your timer and your count. On your count, you're just going to go through those parameters I mentioned earlier. Right now we have nothing in for gun 1 or gun 2 or gun 3 or gun 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. So it doesn't have anything in the memory. If you wanted to, and there was something in there, you go to count, you go to whichever gun you want, and if you hit reset, it would reset that one particular gun to 0. If you want to set them all to 0, you push down for 3 seconds, it'll clear all the guns. To go into your calibration mode, I'm going to push both of these up. And now you have these two things here, this cycle. You cycle back and forth between yes and no. Okay? We want to set calibration, so we're going to go yes. We're going to use this as an enter button. Okay? Here you could set your yellow stroke counter numbers. or your white stroke counter numbers to make sure that the count per stroke of the cycle is equal to the gallons actually being put out by the pump. We're not going to mess with that right now. If we have time later, we'll go through a calibration cycle. So we're just going to go through no. Set the black, set the left box. This, you can only have a left box and a right box. You can't have two left boxes and two right boxes, otherwise it gets really confused. So if this was the right box, we would just choose no here. Shadow black, that's what that does. It actually creates a situation where the black gun reacts with the gun set in front of it. So if you set the black as a shadow gun, it will turn on after the gun in front of it has turned off. So it keeps a shadow behind the gun. Auto cycle, in this feature, if you hit this advanced button 3 times consecutively, it makes a permanent adjustment to the cycle. So say you have a 10-30 cycle, have that set in there. In the preset, the pattern on the road is just a little short. If you have auto cycle set, you go retard 3 times, it'll shorten that cycle by a percentage of a foot. Gun factor, that's a factor that you put in there. At the first shot, the beads will always miss the very beginning of the line. So you have a one shot that delays that bead gun by 20 milliseconds, just so that first line has beads on it. Here you have some offsets. If you have guns that are behind other guns, or guns that don't line up with each other when they come on, say your 2 yellows, you can set offsets so those lines start and stop at the same place. Here you have delays. That's an on delay. If your lines are a little long, you can put an on delay off on there, so it starts your gun a little later and shorten the line. So now your timer says you're doing a 10-foot line. You use these delays to actually create a 10-foot line. Calibration goes into your calibration distance calibration. Again, if we have time, we can go on the road and do that. But we're not going to set the calibration now. We'll just let this cycle through, and you just change that number up and down, and it's going to memorize and go back to its cycle. That's how you do your timer calibration.
What do you call this unit?
This is a skip line timer.
I'll put that at the